The day humans learned they were different from every other species in the galaxy started like any other at the newly built Earth Embassy. The building stood tall with its glass walls reflecting the purple sky of Centauri Prime, the neutral meeting, ground for all galactic species. Major Alan Carter straightened his uniform one last time before entering the grand meeting hall. His heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. As Earth's military representative, he needed to show strength. Next to him walked Dr. Elaine Murray, her eyes bright with excitement. As Earth's best language expert, she had spent years studying. "Alien communication patterns ready?" Alan asked. Elaine nodded, as ready as anyone can be to meet with beings from across the stars. They walked into the room together. The circular table was made from black stone that seemed to swallow light. Around it sat 6 aliens, each from a different world. Some had scales, others had extra limbs, and one seemed to float above its chair. "Welcome, Earth representatives," said the tallest alien. Its skin changed colors as it spoke, flashing blue and green. "I am Ambassador Zixtarn from the Galactic Council." Alan and Elaine took their seats. This meeting was the result of 10 years of careful talks after humans had discovered faster-than-light travel. The galaxy, they had learned, was full of life and governed by something called the Galactic Council. "We have reviewed your application for full membership," Zixtarn continued. "The Council has reached a decision." Alan leaned forward slightly. This moment would shape humanity's future among the stars. "Earth is accepted into the galactic community," said Zixtarn. The colors on its skin turned bright yellow with happiness. "However, with one important condition." Elaine frowned. "What condition?" "Humans will not be allowed to take part in galactic wars." The room went quiet. Alan looked at Elaine, confusion on both their faces. "I don't understand," said Alan. "We've been working toward peace on Earth. We haven't had a global war in over 50 years. A small alien with 4 eyes spoke next. Its voice sounded like soft bells. "That is precisely why the restriction exists. Not because you are too violent, but because you are different." Elaine's training kicked in. "Different how?" "We've shared our history, culture, and biology with the Council. What have we missed?" The aliens looked at each other, having a silent conversation that the humans couldn't understand. Finally, Zixtarn spoke again. "In our galaxy, war follows strict rules. It has for thousands of years. Species fight over resources and territory, but according to agreed-upon laws that limit damage and death." "Like your version of the Geneva Convention?" Alan asked. "Similar, but much more extensive," replied Zixtarn. "Wars in our society are more like what you might call sports competitions or business deals. They are ways to settle disputes without destroying civilizations." Alan nodded slowly. "And you think humans wouldn't follow these rules?" The floating alien moved forward. Its body looked like fog trapped in an invisible bubble. "We have studied your history. Your wars are personal, emotional. You fight with a determination that we find disturbing. You fight to win at any cost," added a reptile-like alien. "Most species fight until one side has a clear advantage, then negotiate. Humans fight until they cannot fight anymore." Elaine spoke up. "But we've evolved past that. Earth is unified now. We've learned from our bloody history." Zixtarn's skin turned a deep purple. "Perhaps, but the capacity remains. We have observed that humans have something we call the desperate edge. When cornered, most species become less effective. Humans often become more dangerous." Alan wanted to argue but stopped himself. He remembered his military training, the stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when pushed to their limits. "So what does this mean for us?" he asked. "Instead, it means you are welcome in galactic society," said Zixtarn. "You may establish colonies in approved sectors. You may trade, share knowledge, and join in cultural exchange. But you may not participate in the regulated warfare system that determines resource allocation and settles disputes." "And if someone attacks us?" Alan's voice was steady, but his hands had formed fists under the table. "The Council will provide. Protection is needed. answered the four-eyed alien. No species would dare attack Earth or human colonies without council approval. The meeting continued for another hour. They discussed trade routes, technology sharing, and cultural exchange programs, but Alan barely heard any of it. His mind kept returning to the strange restriction. As they walked back to their quarters after the meeting, Elaine finally broke the silence. "They're afraid of us," she said. Alan nodded. "Not of what we've done, but of what we might do." "Do you think they're right? Are we that different?" Alan looked out at the alien city through the window. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved through streets designed for hundreds of different body types. "I think," he said slowly, "that they've never had to fight for survival the way Earth species have. Our planet shaped us differently. Will it be a problem? This restriction?" Alan shrugged. "Maybe not. Earth is peaceful now. We don't need wars to get resources." But deep down, he felt uneasy. The Council clearly knew something about humans that humans themselves didn't fully understand. What neither of them realized was that the Council had been watching Earth for centuries. Observation drones, disguised as shooting stars or birds, had recorded every human conflict. They had watched as humans fought in mud and snow, as they developed increasingly deadly weapons, as they sacrificed themselves for causes and comrades. The Council had seen how humans adapted during battles, changing strategies in ways that seemed almost impossible to predict. They had witnessed the human capacity to endure suffering that would break most species. They had observed how humans could hate their enemies and yet, once the fighting stopped, help rebuild their cities. In the private council chamber after the humans left, Zix Tarn addressed the others. "Was our decision correct?" asked the reptilian representative. "Yes," said Zix Tarn firmly. "Humans must never participate in our war systems. They do not understand war as we do. For them, it is not a tool or a game. It is something primal, something they both fear and excel at." "Will they accept the restriction?" asked the floating alien. Zix Tarn's skin turned a thoughtful blue. "For now, they are eager to join the galactic community. But someday, they will be tested, and then we will all learn if our caution was warranted." As night fell on Centauri Prime, Alan stared at the unfamiliar stars from his window. Somewhere out there were thousands of worlds, filled with beings who thought humans were too dangerous to fight alongside. The thought should have been comforting, but instead, it left him wondering what the Council had seen in humanity's nature that humans themselves could not. 5 years passed since humans first learned about their special status in the galaxy. Earth joined the Galactic Council, and people began to spread to nearby star systems. Proxima Centauri became home to a research station where humans worked, with aliens to study space travel and share technology. Proxima Station floated in the darkness like a shining wheel. It had 6 long arms connected to a central hub. 300 people lived there, some human and some alien. They studied stars, built new machines, and learned from each other. Commander Susan Wells sat in her office on Earth when the emergency call came in. Her screen flashed red and a voice spoke with forced calm. "Emergency at Proxima Station. Contact lost with 3 sections. Unknown ship detected. Please advise." Susan stood up quickly. "Get my ship ready. I want a full crew and all systems checked. We leave in 2 hours." She called Greg Peterson, her best pilot. "Greg, we have trouble at Proxima. I need you at the ship now." "On my way," he replied without questions. Susan also contacted Tiv Lorne, an alien engineer from the Zolari species who had been working with humans since first contact. The Zolari looked like tall insects with 4 arms and shiny blue skin. They understood machines better than any other species. "I will join your crew," Tiv Lorne said. "The Council will want a non-human observer if there is danger." 2 hours later, Susan's ship, the Star Dancer, left Earth orbit. The journey to Proxima Station would take 3 days using the fastest engines humans had built. For those 3 days, Susan and her crew prepared for whatever they might find. "What do we know about the station's last message?" Susan asked during a meeting with her team. "Not much. said the communications officer. They reported strange readings, then lost contact with 3 of the 6 arms. The last thing they said was that something was attaching to their main dock. Tiv Lorne's antenna twitched nervously. The council has been informed. They warned us not to engage in combat. Humans are still under restriction from galactic wars. Susan nodded. This isn't war. It's rescue. We go in, find survivors, and get out. On the 3rd day, the Star Dancer approached Proxima Station. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go quiet. 3 of the station's arms were gone, broken off at the base. Pieces of metal and plastic floated around like dead leaves in water. The central hub still had lights, which meant some power remained. Life signs? Susan asked. The sensor operator nodded. Weak signals from the main hub. Maybe 20 people still alive. And that? Susan pointed to a dark shape attached to the station's main dock. Unknown vessel, said Tiv Lorne after studying the readings. Not in council records, but I recognize the design. It belongs to the Vrax. Everyone turned to look at the alien. The name meant nothing to the humans. The Vrax were once part of the council, Tiv Lorne explained. They were removed centuries ago for breaking war protocols. They became pirates, attacking ships and stations outside protected zones. Are they still on the station? Greg asked. Tiv Lorne. Check the sensors again. Yes, multiple life signs moving through the hub. They are searching for something. Or someone, Susan said. Prepare the rescue team. Standard equipment only. We go in, find our people, and get out. No engagement unless necessary. Tiv Lorne's antennae stood straight up. Commander, Council, rules forbid humans from fighting non-Earth species without permission. Susan looked directly at the alien. We're not going to fight. We're going to rescue. But if these Vrax get in our way, we'll defend ourselves. The rescue team consisted of 12 humans and 4 Zolari engineers. They wore spacesuits with built-in tools and small weapons for emergencies. Susan led them to the station using a small shuttle that docked on the opposite side from the Vrax ship. Stay together, Susan ordered as they entered the station. Greg, you and your team take the left path to the living quarters. I'll take my team right toward the labs. Tiv Lorne, monitor our progress from the shuttle. The inside of the station was dark, with only emergency lights glowing red along the floors. The air was thin but breathable. As they moved through the silent corridors, they found signs of struggle. Broken equipment lay scattered around. Doors had been forced open. Greg's voice came through the radio. We found survivors, 6 humans and 2 Zolari hiding in a sealed room. They're weak but alive. Get them to the shuttle, Susan ordered. We'll check the labs. Susan's team moved carefully through the station. They found more survivors along the way and sent them back with guards. When they reached the main lab, they discovered why the Vrax had come. The station had been studying a new type of energy crystal that could power ships for years without refueling. The Vrax wanted that technology for themselves. As Susan's team helped the last survivors, alarms suddenly blared through the station. Commander. Tiv Lorne's voice was urgent. Vrax fighters are heading toward your position. You must leave now. Susan and her team hurried the survivors toward the exit. As they turned a corner, they came face to face with 3 Vrax pirates. The aliens were tall and covered in gray scales. They had flat faces with sharp teeth and carried large weapons. Stop. Them. One Vrax shouted. They're taking the scientists. The pirates fired their weapons. Energy bolts hit the walls around the humans. Susan's team pushed the survivors behind them and raised their own weapons. What happened next surprised even Susan. Her team moved with perfect coordination, as if they had practiced this exact situation many times. 2 security officers rolled to opposite sides of the corridor, firing with precise aim. Another team member pulled a panel from the wall and used it as a shield. 2 more dragged the survivors to safety while providing covering fire. In less than 30 seconds, the 3 Vrax were unconscious, and Susan's team continued toward the shuttle without a single injury. Tiv Lorne watched this through the shuttle's cameras. The Zolari engineer had never seen anything like it. What amazed Tiv Lorne most was not the human skill with weapons, but how they adapted instantly to the situation. They communicated with hand signals and seemed to predict each other's moves. Most surprisingly, their body readings showed that during the fight, their heart rates had actually slowed rather than sped up. When all the survivors were safely on the shuttle, they returned to the Star Dancer and left Proxima space quickly. The Vrax ship tried to follow but gave up when the faster human vessel reached open space. Back on the Star Dancer, Susan checked on the survivors, while Tivlorn sent a report to the Galactic Council. The report described the rescue mission in detail but included a private note for council leaders only. "Now I understand why humans are excluded from galactic wars," Tivlorn wrote. "They do not fight like other species. They adapt instantly, work together without visible signals, and become more focused when in danger. Most disturbing, they show no fear when facing superior enemies. Instead, they become calmer and more efficient. If this is how humans perform in a simple rescue mission, I cannot imagine what they would be capable of in actual warfare." As the Star Dancer headed back to Earth, Susan was unaware of Tivlorn's report. She only knew they had saved 23 lives from the station. For her, that was enough. But throughout the galaxy, the Council began to pay closer attention to these strange beings from Earth, who seemed so peaceful until threatened. 20 years had passed since the Proxima Station rescue. Humanity had spread to 12 star systems, building colonies and research stations. The largest and most beautiful was New Eden, a green planet with warm oceans and gentle weather. Gendursik, 1,000 humans lived there, growing special plants that could only bloom in New Eden's unique soil. These plants made medicines that helped many species across the galaxy. Admiral Peter Walsh woke to the sound of an alarm. His room was dark except for the red flashing light on his communication panel. He touched the panel and a voice spoke. "Admiral, we have an emergency signal from New Eden. They're under attack." Peter got dressed quickly. "What kind of attack? Who's attacking them?" "Unknown, sir." The message was cut off. We only got part of it. In the command center, officers worked at their stations trying to learn more about the attack. The message from New Eden played on a large screen. A woman with dirt on her face spoke quickly. "This is Governor Kelly from New Eden. We are under attack by unknown ships. They came without warning. Our defense systems didn't detect them until too late. They're destroying everything. We need immediate." The message ended there. Peter looked at his second in command. "How long to reach New Eden?" 3 days at maximum speed, sir. Prepare the fleet. All available ships. We leave in 1 hour." As Earth ships prepared for departure, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zix Tarn appeared on the screen, its skin a worried purple color. "Admiral Walsh, we have been informed of the situation at New Eden. The Council is sending observers. Please remember that under our agreement, human military response must be proportional and controlled." Peter nodded. "Our people are dying, Ambassador. We're going to help them." "Of course, but remember, conflict must follow protocols." For 3 days, the Earth fleet raced toward New Eden. Peter barely slept, waiting for more news. None came. The colony remained silent. When they arrived, Peter stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the screens showing New Eden. His hands gripped the rail in front of him tightly. The colony was in ruins. Buildings burned or had collapsed. The fields of special plants were black ash. Sensors showed no ships in orbit, no sign of whoever had done this. "Life signs?" Peter asked, his voice rough. The sensor officer looked up with sad eyes. "Very few, sir. Maybe 100 survivors out of 10,000. Peter ordered rescue teams to the surface immediately. As they searched for survivors, they found evidence of the attack. Strange energy signatures, burn patterns unlike any weapon humans knew. They collected data, samples, and recordings from security systems that had survived. 3 days later, after the survivors were safe on the ships, Peter received a report from Earth's intelligence service. They had analyzed all the evidence and matched it to known weapons. The attack was carried out by the Crevan hegemony, the report said, a minor species from the outer sectors. They used experimental weapons designed to bypass defense systems. Peter called an emergency meeting with his officers. "Why would the Crevan attack us? We have no history with them. One officer spoke up. Intelligence thinks they were testing weapons and tactics. They wanted to see how humans would respond to an unprovoked attack. And how will we respond? Asked Peter. Before anyone could answer, another message from the Galactic Council arrived. The Council formally expressed sorrow for the attack but reminded Earth that any response must follow proper channels. The Kreven were protected under Galactic war protocols. Any conflict had to be approved, regulated, and monitored. They killed 10,000 civilians and we have to ask permission to respond? One officer slammed his hand on the table. Those are the rules we agreed to when we joined the Council, another replied. Peter sat quietly, thinking. Then he spoke. The Council restrictions apply to Earth's official military actions. What if individuals acted on their own? The room went silent as everyone understood what he meant. 2 weeks later, 3 unmarked ships left Earth space. Their crews were all volunteers who had resigned from military service. They carried no Earth flags or symbols. They were no longer Earth soldiers, just private citizens seeking justice. The first report of attacks on Kreven outposts came a month later. The pattern was strange and frightening to the watching galaxy. The attackers didn't try to take territory. They didn't demand surrender. They simply appeared, destroyed military targets with surgical precision, and disappeared. Before each attack, they evacuated civilian areas. No Kreven civilians died. Only military bases, weapon factories, and government buildings were hit. After each attack, a simple message played on all frequencies. For New Eden. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Ambassador Zixtarn addressed the gathered representatives. The pattern of these attacks is consistent with human military thinking, though Earth denies involvement. Whoever is doing this is following what humans call proportional response. They lost a colony, so they are destroying military assets, not civilians. But this isn't how conflicts work in our system, said another council member. Wars follow rules. There are formal declarations, approved targets, and scheduled battles. This is chaos. This is human justice, replied Zixtarn. They see a direct line between crime and punishment. The Kreven killed their people, so they are destroying the Kreven's ability to kill again. The attacks continued for 6 months. By the end, the Kreven military was broken. Their leaders sent a message directly to Earth, not to the Council, begging for peace. They offered compensation for New Eden and promised never to attack humans again. When Peter Walsh received this message, he called a private meeting with Earth's leaders. They agreed to accept the Kreven surrender and end the conflict. No one officially acknowledged the 3 ships or their crews, who returned quietly to Earth space. The Galactic Council increased their monitoring of human activities. They placed more observers on human ships and stations, but the damage was done. Several smaller species began approaching Earth for unofficial protection agreements. They saw how humans defended their people and wanted that same protection. Ambassador Zixtarn, now very old, spoke to the Council one last time before retiring. This is exactly why humans were excluded from our war system. They don't fight for territory or resources. They fight for justice, for revenge, for protection. These concepts make conflict personal and unpredictable, and most dangerous of all, they make it effective. As Peter Walsh looked at the stars from his office window, he thought about New Eden and what had happened. Humans had broken no agreements. Earth's military had never officially engaged the Kreven, but the galaxy now understood something important about humans. Attack them, and they will respond. Not with formal declarations or scheduled battles, but with swift, precise action that followed their own sense of justice. And that scared the Galactic Council more than any weapon ever could. 5 years after the New Eden incident, the galaxy faced a new threat unlike any before. It began on the outer rim, far from Earth and the main Council worlds. The Umbraki, a fungal species that lived in large colonies, began to spread rapidly through nearby systems. The Umbraki had always been viewed as primitive and harmless. They lived on moist planets with thick atmospheres and rarely contacted other species. Then something changed. They developed a biological agent that attacked the nervous systems of other life forms. Any planet they touched soon fell silent. Its people left as empty shells, their minds gone while their bodies lived on. By the time the Council realized what was happening, 12 worlds had fallen to the Umbreki. No one knew why the once peaceful fungal colonies had suddenly become aggressive, but the threat to all intelligent life was clear. The Council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 200 species gathered to discuss the Umbreki problem. Their normal warfare protocols weren't working against this enemy. The Umbreki had no government to negotiate with, no military bases to target, no supply lines to cut. They spread like a disease, each spore carrying the same collective intelligence. Our conventional forces cannot stop them, reported the military, commander of the Council forces. The Umbreki don't fight like we do. They don't seek to win battles or take territory. They simply spread and convert all living things to hosts for their consciousness. After 3 days of debate, the Council made an unprecedented decision. They would temporarily suspend the human exclusion policy. Earth could provide strategic and technical help against the Umbreki, though direct military involvement was still limited. Colonel Olivia Reeves arrived at Council headquarters with a team of specialists. She was tall with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. As Earth's top expert on biological threats, she had fought diseases that could have wiped out whole continents. Now she faced something that could end all intelligent life in the galaxy. The Council leaders met Olivia in a large room with a round table. Screens on the walls showed maps of affected areas. Ambassador Zix Tarn, now very old but still representing the Council, greeted her. Colonel Reeves, thank you for coming. The situation is desperate. 12 worlds lost already, and the Umbreki are spreading to 5 more systems. Olivia nodded and got straight to work. I need to see all your data on the Umbreki, their biology, how they communicate, how they spread, and especially the biological agent they're using against other species. For 3 days, Olivia and her team studied everything the Council knew about the Umbreki. They ran tests, built models, and analyzed patterns of spread. On the 4th day, she called a meeting with the Council. You're fighting this wrong, she said bluntly. Her words shocked the gathered representatives. The Umbreki aren't waging war. They're expanding their ecosystem. They don't recognize other sentient beings as people, just as potential growth medium. What difference does that make? Asked a Council member. They're still killing us. It makes all the difference, Olivia replied. You can't defeat them with ships and weapons because they don't think like you do. They don't have fear or ambition, or any concept of surrender. Each Umbreki is part of a single consciousness. Destroying individuals means nothing to them. Then how do we stop them? Asked Zix Tarn. Olivia stood up and walked to the main screen. She brought up an image of an Umbreki spore. Stop thinking like warriors and start thinking like gardeners. We need to make ourselves toxic to them. Her solution surprised everyone. Instead of attacking the Umbreki directly, she proposed using modified terraforming technology to create environmental conditions that were hostile to Umbreki biology, but safe for other species. The Umbreki survive in very specific conditions, she explained. Change those conditions and they can't spread. We don't need to kill them, just contain them to their original worlds. The Council was skeptical but desperate. They approved Olivia's plan. For the next 6 months, Council ships equipped with Earth's modified terraforming technology established zones around infected planets. They created environmental barriers that the Umbreki couldn't cross. Rather than fighting battles, they fought biology with biology. Slowly, the spread of the Umbreki stopped. Then, using more advanced versions of the same technology, they began to reclaim infected worlds. The process was slow but effective. The Umbreki were pushed back to their original territory. When the crisis finally ended, the Council held a special ceremony to thank Colonel Reeves and her team. Zix Tarn presented her with the highest honor the Council could give to a non-member species. You have saved countless lives across the galaxy, said the old ambassador. Your approach to this threat was unexpected, but exactly what was needed. Olivia accepted the honor with a nod. We simply looked at the problem differently. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to change the rules of engagement. After the ceremony, Zixtarn spoke privately with other council leaders. Humans continue to surprise us. They see patterns. We miss. They approach problems from angles we would never consider. Is it time to reconsider their exclusion from galactic wars? Asked one leader. Perhaps, replied Zixtarn. But not yet. They solved this crisis precisely because they don't think like us. Their unpredictability makes them valuable allies, but potentially dangerous participants in our regulated warfare system. As Olivia prepared to return to Earth, she met with Ambassador Martin, Earth's representative to the Council. He had watched her work with pride and concern. You've made quite an impression, he told her. The Council is beginning to see humans in a new light. Is that good or bad? She asked. Both, I think. They respect us more but fear us too. Your solution worked because you thought outside their rules and traditions. That frightens them even as they benefit from it. Olivia looked out at the stars through the station window. We're different from them, aren't we? Not better, just different. They've had peace for so long that they've forgotten how to adapt to new threats. And we've had to adapt to survive our whole history, agreed Martin. Earth wasn't as kind to us as their homeworlds were to them. As Olivia's ship departed for Earth, news of the human solution to the Umbreki threat spread throughout the galaxy. Smaller species began to look at Earth with new interest. The humans had done what the mighty Council could not. They had stopped an enemy that didn't play by the rules. In private chambers, the Council began a serious debate about humanity's role in galactic security. For the first time, some members argued that humans should be fully included in all aspects of galactic society, including warfare. Others remained cautious. Remember why they were excluded in the first place, warned one ancient member. They don't see war as we do. For them, it's not a regulated competition with rules and limits. It's survival, adaptation, and victory at any cost. The debate continued, but one thing was certain. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The Vraks had been watching the galaxy for centuries. Once members of the Galactic Council, they had been cast out for breaking war protocols. They lived at the edges of known space, raiding ships and small outposts. They took what they wanted and disappeared before Council forces could respond. The Vraks leader, Grand Commander Krell, had watched with interest as humans dealt with the Kreven and the Umbreki. Unlike other species, humans didn't follow the predictable patterns of Council warfare. They adapted, they improvised, they fought in ways no one expected. They are like us, Krell told his war council. They understand that true power comes from unpredictability, not from following rules. For years, the Vraks had been building their forces, developing weapons that could bypass Council defenses. Now they were ready. Their plan was bold and simple. Attack 50 Council worlds simultaneously, destroy their communication and defense systems, and demand that 1/3 of all Council territory be surrendered to Vraks control. The attack began without warning. Vrak ships appeared above major cities on planets across the galaxy. They destroyed communication centers, defense grids, and government buildings in perfectly coordinated strikes. Millions died in the first day. By the end of the week, the death toll had reached billions. The Council was thrown into chaos. Their military response was slow and disorganized. Centuries of regulated warfare had left them unprepared for all-out conflict. As casualties mounted and more systems fell, the Council leaders made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. They formally suspended the human exclusion policy. Earth was not merely invited, but begged to join the defense effort without restrictions. President Laura Mitchell stood before the United Earth Congress, her face serious as she addressed the representatives from all human worlds. For generations, we have accepted our exclusion from galactic conflicts out of respect for the Council's traditions. Today, they have asked for our help without conditions. The choice before us is clear. We can stand aside and watch civilizations fall, or we can fight as humans always have, not for territory or resources, but for survival itself. The vote was unanimous. Earth would join the war against the Vraks with all its strength. General Samuel Ross took command of the human forces. At 56, he had spent his entire career studying war while hoping never to fight one. Now he faced an enemy that threatened all intelligent life in the galaxy. The Vraks expect us to fight like the Council does, with large fleets, direct engagements and by-the-book tactics, he told his officers. We won't do that, we'll fight our way. Under Samuel's command, human forces ignored conventional engagement protocols. They established guerrilla networks on occupied worlds, helped local people resist the invaders. They targeted Vraks leadership with small, precise strikes, rather than attacking large bases. They used psychological operations to confuse and frighten the enemy. Most importantly, they adapted constantly. Each time the Vraks adjusted to human tactics, the humans changed their approach. As Samuel told his commanders, the moment they figure out our playbook, we write a new one. 6 months into what became known as the Vraks War, the tide had turned. The Vraks, once confident of quick victory, found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't predict. Their advances stalled, then reversed. One by one, occupied worlds were liberated. What shocked the watching galaxy most was how the humans treated civilians on both sides. They took extraordinary risks to save innocent lives, even delaying military operations to evacuate people from danger zones. At the same time, they showed unexpected mercy to Vraks who surrendered, treating them with dignity rather than revenge. 8 months after the war began, Krell sent a message directly to Earth, not to the Council. The Vraks leader, once proud and certain of victory, now asked for peace talks. He wanted to negotiate with humans specifically, saying they were the only ones who truly understood the nature of conflict. In a secure room on a neutral space station, Samuel Ross met with Krell. The Vraks commander, his gray scales dulled by months of stress, studied the human general with yellow eyes. You fight differently than the Council, Krell said. They follow patterns, traditions. You create new ways to fight with each battle. Samuel nodded. That's how we survived on Earth. We had to adapt or die. Your species confuses me, Krell admitted. You risk your soldiers to save enemy civilians. You treat prisoners with respect. Yet you fight with a determination that frightens even the Vraks. We fight hard because we value peace, Samuel explained. We protect civilians because that's the point of fighting at all, to save lives, not take them. The peace treaty that ended the Vraks War reshaped the galaxy. The Vraks returned to their original territory but were allowed to send representatives to the Council again, under strict supervision. The human exclusion policy was permanently ended. Earth became a full member of the galactic community with all rights and responsibilities. After the final treaty was signed, Ambassador Zix Tarn addressed the Council one last time before retiring. The old diplomat had seen humanity's journey from outsiders to saviors. Now you understand why humans were excluded all those years ago, Zix Tarn said to the gathered representatives. Not because they are more violent. Many species exceed them in aggression. Not because they are more advanced. In many areas they lag behind us. Humans were excluded because they never developed the concept of war as we understand it. For every species in this council, warfare evolved as ritualized competition with formal rules. For humans, war was always about survival, against predators, harsh environments, and each other. They don't have the instinctual limits that we do. What makes humans dangerous isn't their capacity for violence, but their capacity for innovation. In conflict, they don't follow patterns, they create new ones constantly. And most disturbing of all, they can enter a state where fear makes them more effective, not less. As Zix Tarn finished speaking, the council chamber filled with discussion. Some members worried that humans would now dominate galactic affairs. Others argued that human unpredictability was exactly what the galaxy needed to prevent future threats. In a quiet observation room, Samuel Ross watched the debate with Colonel Olivia Reeves. Both had played key roles in saving the galaxy, though, in very different ways. Do you think they'll ever truly understand us? Samuel asked. Olivia smiled slightly. I think they're beginning to. They're afraid of us not because we're monsters, but because we refuse to accept limitations. In war, in peace, in everything. And that's what makes us human. Samuel nodded. The refusal to accept that some problems can't be solved. As they walked away, representatives from many worlds followed discreetly, each hoping to secure Earth's friendship. The galaxy had changed forever. The species once excluded from galactic wars had proven to be its greatest defenders, precisely because they didn't see conflict as a game with rules, but as a challenge to overcome with creativity, courage, and compassion.